Welcome back to Psychedelic Therapy Frontiers, the podcast devoted to exploring the frontiers of psychedelic medicine and what it takes to cultivate a healthy mind, body, and spirit. I'm clinical psychologist Dr. Steve Thayer, and today my co-host Dr. Reid Robison and I are joined by both the CEO and Vice President of Hemplucid, Chase Hudson and Tayln Stratton. Hemplucid is a company specializing in hemp-based wellness products, and Chase and Tayln have built a passionate, humanistic, and purpose-driven culture over there at Hemplucid. Reid and I wanted to explore with them how their own healing journey through psychedelic medicine has helped them accomplish this. They're both wonderful, awake, insightful people, and I really enjoyed talking to them. Side note, if you want to reach out to us, please email us at psychfrontiers@novamind.ca. You can also find us on Instagram at Dr. Steve Thayer, at Interspace Doctor, and at Novamind. Please enjoy our conversation with Chase and Tayln. All right, welcome back to Psychedelic Therapy Frontiers.
Hello.
I'm Dr. Steve Thayer. Hi, everybody. Dr. Reid Robison.
Hello.
Today, we are joined with Chase and Tayln from Hemplucid. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves to our audience?
Yeah, I'm Tayln. I'm the Vice President of Hemplucid. Got into contact with you guys probably a year, 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So excited to be here. Excited to talk about psychedelic therapies with you guys.
Same.
Yep, my name's Chase Hudson. One of the founders and CEO of Hemplucid, and excited to be here. It's fun to be at your guys' new clinic to see just the growth that you guys have had. We've known you for just over 2 years now. And just started in I think it was just one clinic.
Mm-hmm. Springville,
and now you guys have expanded to, I think, like 6 clinics and still looking to expand.
Yeah, it'd be 8 by the end of the year.
8 by end of year. And I don't know if you remember, Steve, but at the Intermountain Psychedelic Symposium, Hemplucid was a big sponsor. Yeah. That was fun to collaborate on that.
That was
a
super
fun event.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Big turnout.
Crazy big turnout. Way more than they expected.
Yeah. Oh.
Who knew?
We're like, wait, you could double, triple open those doors?
Well, I remember we had Fadiman as one of the speakers, James Fadiman, and he was like, who knew there was a bunch of people in Salt Lake City, Utah who were interested in psychedelic medicine? There's a lot.
That was Utah's big coming out of the psychedelic closet party.
Yeah.
It absolutely was.
Those conferences are always so fun, too, because you get this fun mashup of like academics, scientists, medical professionals, and then you have like the 1960s hippies, and you have like the young folks who are really into the psychedelic scene.
Yeah.
So you've got people in basically white lab coats, and then people in homespun and dreadlocks and stuff.
Yep.
All in the same drum circle.
All in the same drum circle, exactly. Yeah, my favorite T-shirt is from that. The Stoned Ape artwork.
We have
shirt. I love that.
several T-shirts that come into the office each week from that.
Yeah.
It's great.
So cool. Well, tell us and the audience a little bit more about Hemplucid. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Hemplucid, we've been in business. We're going on our 6-year business, but we are a hemp-derived. We sell CBD products. So we sell tinctures, topicals, vape products, gel caps, and we've been doing that 6 years. It's been a fun journey. We got in it kind of the second wave of kind of CBD hitting the mainstream. Mm-hmm. So we hit it great timing. And company took off. We've been, I think we're almost up to 30 employees again. Mm-hmm. And it's fun. It's fun what we've been able to create.
Yeah. And I'm new to this relationship. I just met you guys today, but you guys and Reid go a little bit further back. I'm curious about your interest in psychedelic medicine generally. And then we were talking before we hit record about the corporate culture that you folks have been able to nurture and create and engender, and like what that has to do with ketamine and ketamine-assisted therapy.
Well, we kind of have a unique story with psychedelics. I would say, me, Tayln, and then our other 2 founders of Hemplucid, we all went through a very quick, very radical awakening using psychedelics. When we all lived together, that's when we started the company. So we were living together, we were working together, we were having ceremonies very frequently, and that created this explosion of consciousness between us four, where we were able to really find our purpose as a group, align our energy, and we used that to manifest currently what we have today. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
It created a lot of drive for us. It created a lot of intention to help people heal, utilizing alternative therapies, hemp being one of those things. It was still kind of new to us when we started it. We were familiar with the cannabis space, but how could we bring healing elements to the greater population in a legal way? And hemp was that. So we really got to dive into something and have great intention behind it to bring people closer to health, to bring people closer to who they are in a natural and healthy way. And it launched, and I think that intention pushed it forward at a pace we could have only dreamed of, really.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to go through this awakening with, when you think of psychedelics, you think, the typical families, but the experience of it is you're kind of being removed from reality, and you're being introduced to other realities and other awarenesses. And CBD, I think CBD is one of the most powerful psychedelics, in a sense where it starts to unlock the mind. It starts to connect the mind to the body very, very subtly. And so over time, the mental connection to the body, but then also it seems like it starts to pull back like cultural programming and kind of open the door to the other more traditional psychedelics, because it's just once you start the healing path, or you start taking CBD, or you get into cannabis, it seems like there's an eventuality that you get to where you're looking for other plants to help you heal from whatever you're trying to heal.
Life.
I love that purpose that you both articulated. It's really really neat to hear. It sounds like something out of a Ram Dass storybook, or it reminds me of the Millbrook house that used to have these shared experiences in, or that shared awakening. Yeah, there's something powerful and synergistic about it.
Very much so.
Yeah, going through that with a community of people that you could bounce ideas off or experiences off of, that you could do it without judgment, and experience the awakening together. And I think CBD was a crucial part of that. I mean, for me personally, getting off some pretty terrible pharmaceuticals, knowing that a plant could come in and help treat or help me get better without the need for, something toxic and harmful to my body, was great.
Yeah, we were just talking about before this, the need for more CBD research and more awareness and more good protocols for people to use. But I've noticed that when medical cannabis came to Utah, at least, us as an organization and as prescribers of medical cannabis for certain things, we're dishing out a lot more CBD now alongside THC, whether it's for pain or PTSD and related symptoms, insomnia, things like that. But there's also I'm a fan, there's really interesting evidence about, CBD in combination with THC for certain things too.
Yep, we've seen it. I mean, it's kind of been fun for us because we're like in the trenches watching people go through just their healing journey, and because there's not a lot of science around it, so hearing people's experiences, hearing their stories, all the anecdotal stories we get, it's really cool to see how people are utilizing CBD, in combination with THC, and how they're healing. We get stories every week. We read them during our company meeting. Just people's stories, because it's amazing what's going on out there. It's really cool.
That's where it begins, too, the stories. That's how ketamine came into psychiatry, just the stories, the observations of people coming out of, say, anesthesia with an improved mood or outlook, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then come more studies, a more widespread adoption.
Yeah, and I think it's those stories can sometimes be neglected or not thought of as like robust as really big quantitative research data is. Like the randomized clinical trial is the holy grail of clinical research. But qualitative research, where you're collecting individual case studies or individual stories, is oftentimes where the fire gets sparked for interest in any particular therapeutic approach or medicine. And so people will say, oh, you're just an N of one, like your story, like that could have been placebo or whatever. And they'll use that to dismiss individual stories. But I don't know. I feel more compelled. Certainly I am compelled by big data sets, but I feel more compelled by an individual's story, their healing journey.
Absolutely. Yep. It's the observational reality of this person's taking this thing and it's having this type of effect. And that's what sparks kind of the bigger research.
So that's a fascinating origin. And then how did ketamine come along for you?
Yeah, it's kind of a wild story. So we were contacted to be part of a documentary, part of a treatment with Lamar Odom. So they were going to use our CBD products in conjunction with Ibogaine and ketamine. So that was kind of our first introduction to it. Seeing the effects that ketamine had on Lamar was very profound. And then we had Tayln and another lady that worked for us go to LA to receive ketamine treatments with Dr. Mendel.
Mm-hmm.
So her and the other lady, that was kind of the first, probably within our group as far as people experiencing ketamine. So
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was life-changing, very, very rapidly life-changing. We went out there, and within my first treatment, I was like, it felt like a light bulb turned on inside of my mind. And I was calling back home. I was talking to you and the other founders and was so open. Just like, I mean, it was incredible for me. And I had 2 treatments while I was out there, just a couple of days apart.
IV. Right?
IV, yeah. And came back home, and my life was different. Things that I couldn't have ever imagined I was able to do, I was doing. Like, I'm not a runner, and I got home and saw the backyard and was like, I'm going running. Or I think that's when I started to meditate. And there was just a profound difference. I could see it. Chase could see it. The other founders could see it. And from that moment, Chase was like on the internet looking for how we can provide ketamine or get some other people to experience this medicine here in Salt Lake. So we kind of ran into a doctor that was doing it, pushed more people through. I don't think you had done it yet. You were just pushing.
Can you tell a bit of the Lamar story, just if anyone hasn't heard it? This is from when he hit rock bottom, right?
Yep. So he hit rock bottom. Had one of his friends contact one of the guys who was involved with the movie, the actual director, and was like, I've got a friend. He just listened to, he was giving a speech at Hippocrates on ketamine. So that's when Lamar's friend approached him. And from there, that's kind of when they took Lamar and started giving him these treatments. So they did, it was a long year. It was pretty much spent a year chasing around celebrities and people in Hollywood, and I got exposed to a whole world that is just, it operates differently. The sports world in Hollywood, it's just the type of people that I never really had to deal with. So it was just like a crash course for me because, you know, Hollywood and sports people, I'm a redneck hippie from the mountains. And other people's motives and the way they do business was very tough for me and the company and everybody involved. But through that year, followed Lamar around, multiple ketamine treatments, went down to Mexico and did Iboga. I did Iboga with him.
You did? Huh.
Mm-hmm. And that was very profound. Probably the hardest thing I've done to date as far as plant medicine space. But it was very profound for Lamar. He had just unbelievable experiences and just a huge amount of healing, and broke his addiction to crack cocaine and a couple other addictions. And to this day, still, he stays away from all that bad stuff.
Amazing. Ibogaine is fascinating to me. I've never experienced it personally yet, anyway. And it does have that reputation for kicking your ass. But tell me if this is true, this kind of assumption in the field that you have psychedelics like ayahuasca that help you move through stuck emotions, and then something like Ibogaine that shows you more your patterns, like you see it all, your addictive patterns, and in addition to just kicking them out of you or wiping the cravings away pretty efficiently.
Very efficient. I stopped drinking after I did Ibogaine. I was never really a heavy drinker, just typical college drinker. But alcohol addiction did run in my family. But yeah, I had a very, very vivid, detailed experience in Iboga where it was showing me what was happening to my body and my brain every time I would drink alcohol. And the message was, this is a long-term game you're playing, and you need to be healthy all the way up until the end. And continually drinking alcohol is damaging your brain and your body. And since then, which was over 3 years ago, I think I've only had 2 sips of alcohol. Just a sip, and just didn't like it.
You got the message and hung up the phone, as Alan Watts likes to say.
Yep.
Well, the social media too, that aspect of it.
Yeah, social media. Yeah, it was telling me we're not ready for it. It was showing me, when I created my Facebook account, my MySpace account, and then it was like this reel from when I started it to just current present day.
Wow.
And everything in between. And it was like, look, your species isn't ready for this. Everything you see electronically is imprinted in your brain. And so it was like a third of your brain is full of just crap.
MySpace.
Yes.
What a trip.
So I had this dialogue with it where it's like, do you want me to clean that out? And I'm like, yeah. And I underwent brain surgery. I had this very cool visual of Ibogaine coming into my body, and my brain is a bunch of trillions of these little nano robots, and started scrubbing my brain, and it was a trip, but very, very, very healing, and we were one of the most profound experiences I've ever been through.
Sounds like it. Lasting changes in just a couple ceremonies?
Just one.
One. Wow.
Yep. 1 4-day ceremony, and then I was in a hotel in San Diego for another 4 days, just trying to recover my balance. I couldn't walk very well. Probably could have been a little bit better as far as professionalism around that ceremony. So.
Oh, that's fascinating. I want to bring it to Utah to study.
I think it would be. I think Utah needs that. With all the addictions to prescription pills and the things that are going on here, I think. Yeah. However, we need to help you do that. Let us know.
Yeah.
Deal.
There's a huge need. For when you think of what drives addiction, generally, whether it's to a substance or to, you know, a relationship or to a pattern or something like social media, it's oftentimes this gap in us that we're trying to fill with something that doesn't quite fit the space. And to hear you describe your Iboga experience, it blows my mind just listening to it, because we don't understand how this works or why it's, at least I don't. I'll speak for myself. I don't understand how this works or why this harrowing psychosurgery that you went through, really, really challenging, would lead to such long-term trait changes, right? That's something Reid and I have talked about on the podcast a lot, like the difference between a change in state and a change in trait. So you have these state changes, like your mental state, the non-ordinary state of consciousness that you go through, whether it's alcohol or jumping in a cold pool or hyperventilating yourself. There's lots of different ways we can alter our mental states, but very few of those moments in an altered state would lead to lasting changes in your traits. Like, oh, I no longer even have the desire to drink alcohol. That's a shift in your trait. Or now I'm going to be a runner. Now I want to be outside. When we're depressed, we just don't want to move. We hate ourselves. We have this really locked in trait of, you know, that we call depression. And then something like this flips that upside down and totally changes it. And this is what, you know, we love to see as mental health providers, is somebody who actually makes lasting changes. And it is so hard to engender that in our clients. It's one of the reasons that I was drawn to psychedelic medicine. It's just feeling frustrated for what I could and couldn't do for my patients.
For sure. We sometimes call it altered states for altered traits. But like you look at these psilocybin studies with brain imaging, one dose of psilocybin, not only are you occasioning a mystical experience, but you're creating this immediate shift towards mindfulness, openness, things like that. You're like flipping the lid off of someone's previous self-imposed limitations.
And I always feel the need to make the caveat when we start getting really excited about psychedelics, because the name of our podcast is Psychedelic Therapy Frontiers. Is okay. There are also many people out there who have had experiences with psychedelics that either ruin them, or were disappointing in that they didn't make these lasting changes we're talking about. So it's not a panacea. It's not a cure-all. Just because you get mushrooms from your buddy who lives in the woods, it doesn't mean you're going to be Jesus or Buddha or Michael Jackson or whatever, whoever you worship. It's so, you know, we're trying to temper the excitement, but there are good reasons to be excited about this frontier.
Oh yeah, there's lots of reasons to be excited, and the thing that we're currently offering with our company in the ketamine space is once a quarter we offer ketamine treatments to our employees. And it's been fun to just watch how our culture has shifted, our relationship to business, our relationship to our employees. It's been quite the journey with ketamine-assisted psychotherapy within our own company.
That's something we were talking about before we hit record, and that I'm really proud of you guys for and interested in, is the way you've shaped your company culture around mental wellness and around community and around like really seeing your employee as not a cog in a big machine, but as a human being with whom you're united on a purpose. The purpose being, you know, you have a very purpose-driven, you know, company. I was scrolling, speaking of social media and addiction, I was going through a TikTok rabbit hole the other day, and I got this video of Simon Sinek talking about our labor crisis in America right now. On the going through the COVID pandemic, people not wanting to go back to jobs that they hated because time away from those jobs have helped them realize, like, I don't want to work for a company that doesn't give a shit about me.
Right.
And maybe I don't have to. And it was like one of the number one reasons why people aren't going back to work is they want to be in a place where they're treated like a human being. They want to be in a place where they feel connected to the purpose of the organization and really seen. So I'm curious if you want to share any other details about how you've created that culture at Hemplucid.
Yeah. You know, before we started Hemplucid, I worked at many, many different jobs. And the one previous to this, I was facing burnout. I was facing not feeling cared about. I just wasn't happy. And really it was through a ceremony that we did at our house, I was like, wow, this is like actually killing me. Like it's sucking the life out of me. And so I was very cognizant of the experiences that people do have of feeling like a cog in a machine where you're not really cared about. So we just had this beautiful opportunity, first of all, to create a company, and second of all, to create a culture within that company that followed what had helped us heal. So it really just turned into, wow, okay, we have a bunch of humans that, like us, have gone through a bunch of trauma, and they're bringing that trauma with them to work. It's how it happens. You don't get to just turn that on and off when you enter the office space and leave the office space. Like, you carry it with you wherever you go. And Chase is very, very good at talking to people and pulling out their story. So people would just spill their stories in our offices during the day. And for us, it was just as simple as like, this is what's helped us. You know, we've done these things, so we know that you might benefit from them. And really, it was that first ketamine experience for me that launched being able to do it for other people and integrate the therapies to allow people to come to work or show up in their lives a little bit differently. And it's made a huge impact. It's made an impact on how we work together as a team, how people show up on an individual basis, and that feeling of being cared for. I mean, people don't experience that in most of the world. I mean, walking through the grocery store, it's hard to even get people to make eye contact with you, let alone be like, I really care about your story and I really care about your healing. I mean, that's the whole purpose of what we're doing with CBD. So why not integrate therapies and legal therapies, you know? And that's kind of how we bumped into you. And it's had huge waves of impact in our lives and the lives of our employees' families. There have been some big, heavy traumas that have come through our doors.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, I felt those ripples too, sitting with many of your team members coming out of the ketamine experience for the first time or their, fifth time, whatever it is. It's amazing to see that brave, deep inner work they're doing and that community that boosts them up. And I can only imagine the benefits it's had to the community, the tribe at work, but all like the productivity, absenteeism, all that, but they're in their own lives and their sphere of influence as well. It's, you're pioneers in something that I think is extremely important and people are realizing more and more in this crisis.
yeah, we talked about it earlier today. 10 years of our lives for the average person is spent at work. So what are we doing in these spaces to create healing instead of, a lot of work can be stressful, it can be chaotic, and that stuff is going to enter that space. So what are we doing to offset that? I feel like as employers, as leaders, it's our responsibility to provide tools of healing. If we have them in our pocket, we can't just sit on them. We have to have a little bit of courage and talk about things that not a lot of people are talking about, but are making a huge difference.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I read recently, there's a lot about this in the news and the literature, burnout, stress, that the number one factor in people's mental health concerns above even trauma is workplace stress. You can see how trauma might have a bigger impact in some severe traumas, of course, but such a common influence. And I saw something about 80 some odd % of people cite, emotional distress from workplace related stress and issues. So there's a problem out there that's rampant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, the big variables that contribute to workplace stress, they can be what you're doing for your work. Like if you feel like your work is meaningless or stupid or the job that you have to do is too hard, that can be stressful. But my guess would be that most of it is the human beings you're around. Right? People quit retail not only because retail sucks, like if you've ever worked retail, but usually because their managers treat them terribly.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Or there's so much, toxicity among their coworkers.
Yep.
So when you talk about culture, like in community within Hemplucid, you could have somebody doing a really, really hard task, maybe even a task that stretches their competency. But if they feel supported, if they feel like you have their back, that even if they did sort of fall apart, you even have resources for them to get well again. I imagine your turnover rate is going to be pretty low.
It is. We actually did an interesting cultural exercise at our at our work the other day, and some of the top traits of what people believe, that like what our top beliefs are, what our top values are, and what our top behaviors are, all revolve around health and wellness. All of them. Hard work was low on the list.
Yeah.
But like that we genuinely care about the health and the wellness. And it's especially important for top level leaders. I mean, the amount of stress being a CEO causes, and the different things that your brain has to hold. I know Chase has utilized these treatments massively to help keep his mind functioning and clear, because there's a lot of stuff that can get trapped. So that's also been another really big positive for us in leading it, is doing it ourselves and passing that culture down, that you do have the power to heal, that you can dive in and you can get better because of it.
Yeah, there seems to be this new relationship between corporation and employee. Just like you were talking, people don't want to go back to work because they're burned out, they're sick of the corporate, soul-sucking world. So there's this opportunity right now to have a new contract between employer and employee. And when you start looking at your company and the people that are working for you, when you start really looking at the mental health aspect, I think that is going to be the future, that more corporations are going to have to implement some sort of mental health program, protocol, because their employees are going to demand it.
Yeah, isn't it fascinating that 10 years ago we were struggling with these mental health parity, like not just the stigma, but you couldn't get access from your same health insurance to mental health treatments. And we're coming a long way. There's a long way to go, but it's really an era where that's spilling out on the surface, out of necessity, and we're all seeing we need to pay attention to it, and it's really beautiful what you're doing in the workplace for it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's like Tom was saying, we have like a duty and responsibility. I mean, there's a shift happening in the world, happening in our culture. It seems like there's like an old structure of reality that is falling away, and this new reality is being built and formed. And I think with what we're doing, what you guys are doing, this is part of the foundation of the new world between, corporations and employees. I mean, the work that you guys are doing, I mean, it's like all hands on deck right now to create the foundation for this new thing that's happening. And it's an honor to be a part of it.
Yeah, and we need more people to be a part of it, because if we either wake up as a society or we don't make it. I think that the earth will gladly recycle us if we don't figure this shit out and start treating each other better, start treating ourselves better, start treating our environment better. We just can't, I don't think we can make it into the next chapter of human civilization operating under the same sort of old-fashioned, outdated mental software programs that got us where we are now. I mean, and I love where we are now. Pretty impressive, but man, we are dinged up. And I think the plant medicines that we have access to help us wake up, really important. The mental technologies that we have, like meditation, to get to know human consciousness in a way that most of us have been ignorant to, because these technologies, well, I call them technologies, but like these strategies, these awarenesses have been the purview of religion or spiritual traditions. And so, I love that we're starting to take the best science that we have from these Western traditions and mix it with these ancient mental technologies from spiritual traditions. And I think that's what, when I say waking up, I think that's what it looks like.
I totally agree.
And even the way that psychotherapy has embraced the body and somatic work and the importance of it is a new thing in mental health, in psychiatry, psychology, and from not that many years ago when it was all kind of top down. But we're seeing really powerful healing coming from going through the body or engaging the body in that journey.
Are you guys familiar with Peter Levine?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like
I love his work.
Yeah, the somatic. I think that's definitely another frontier that's just about to just absolutely explode. 'Cause the nervous system, trauma being stored in the body. Just when I was in Peru, I had 3 or 4 ceremonies where my body just shook violently, the whole ceremony. And
Ayahuasca.
Yep. And so you're reading Peter Levine's book and understanding how traumas get stored in the body, and you have this animal part of your brain, and like we're part of nature, we like forget that part. But it was good to understand what was actually happening. And I love Peter Levine, his work. Our founder, one of our founders is actually facilitating down in Peru right now, and after she's done with that, she's getting into the somatic therapy and healing. So it's exciting to see like our group starting to break off into that facilitating world, but also the somatic therapy.
And the plant medicines we're talking about, you can't help but pay attention to the body when you're in these plant medicines. But I was just looking up as you were talking, there's this, I don't know who created this organization, maybe you know, Reid, but the Psychedelic Somatic Institute, they created this therapy called Psychedelic Somatic Interactional Psychotherapy, PSIP, where I believe he uses cannabis as the plant medicine to really get people in their body past their blocks to their trauma. And he's got videos on the website of him doing this therapy, but it's very, very somatically based, and depth psychology, I think, kind of psychodynamic influences. And he's got people shaking. He's got people regressing to like their childhood selves, processing like attachment traumas. But he's not using like some super powerful psychedelic. He's using cannabis.
Yeah, we use Peter Levine's somatic experiencing a lot here. I've used it countless times in ayahuasca settings too, both with helping people and personally. Because, I've noticed that there seem to be a couple main categories of ayahuasca trips. Like you could have a body trip, or you could have, an emotional mind soul trip, and any combination of those. But I remember one time, one of my first ayahuasca ceremonies in the jungle, just having like these vibrations, this feeling of vibrations, and then shaking, and one of my legs even cramped mid-ceremony. I thought it was the weirdest thing. I wasn't exercising. Like I've had that swimming laps before, like training for a triathlon or something, but it was wild to see like what is in the body and what can come out, like pins and needles tingling at times.
The body keeps the score.
Yeah.
It really does.
It does.
And you can access your trauma through the body like you were talking about. I think sometimes it's difficult because it's hard to feel safe in your body. And I think a lot of our culture keeps us from that, keeps us from the signals that are being transmitted through our bodies. And it's tough. It's tough to get to that spot where you're in your body and you feel rooted and grounded in it enough to start some of that somatic healing.
Yeah, that's the challenge, because our body is our best resource for like grounding, for resilience. Yet when we have big traumas that disembody us, you lose that. And then you're not on very solid ground in that state. You don't have a very big window of tolerance. And so that's, I think you're hitting one of the big reasons why these modalities are so powerful, and there's so much like bang for your buck and high yield early on in doing this kind of work. Weren't you saying that you're bringing in some somatic things at work?
Yeah, that's another just tool for people we really want to just empower people to be able to facilitate their own healing. So that can look like doing breath work when you're feeling really, really stressed out or traumatized, getting into the body to feel what's happening in the body, and then to kind of dive deeper into where those feelings are generated, and how we can transmute them. So we really want to start getting more into that 5-minute, 10-minute morning, either meditations, movement, breath work, self-touch, moving energy in the body, becoming cognizant of energy in the body, feeling safe in the body, and giving people the groundwork to start exploring some of those feelings, some of those hard feelings that we tend to push away. And really, it's kind of been a theme of ours lately, is just turning in and facing the storm, you know, instead of trying to run from it, because you can't really fix something you're running from.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
That is so true. And it's so foundational to healing, to like any kind of psychological healing. It's the only way out is through.
Yep.
And I was explaining this to my kid the other day, like why people are addicted to things. And I like to quote Gabor Mate, you know, that when we have an addiction, don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. Because the addiction is almost always there to address some kind of underlying pain.
Right.
We're trying to avoid or cover up or fill that hole. But, you know, when you can really, like you were saying, Tayln, like turn inside, look at the storm, and have all the support that you need to feel strong enough to weather that storm, that's when you're going to grow. That's when real growth and real healing will happen.
Absolutely. I don't remember where the quote is from, but it's pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So it's going to be there. Pain will be
Buddhist.
there.
It's one of the many probably really good fake Buddha quotes.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I cite it often.
Yeah,
It just came from the universe.
it did.
Yeah.
It did. And there are tools to learn that. There are tools to learn to sit with pain. Another fun one that a friend of mine have been talking about lately is just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. You know, like it's okay to feel the hard stuff. It really is. And I think as maybe a culture, we've taught people to shy away from that stuff, to bury it, and then it does get trapped. And that's where disease comes from. These things get trapped in your body, and your body reacts.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. And we're habitual creatures. And in this day and age, we have so many ways of running from pain and distracting ourselves from it. Like whether it's turning to swipe through your phone or think about something else, look at something else, or numb out with any assortment of different tools. It's tricky. Like you said about social media, our species is not ready for the magnitude of this.
Right. Yep. I think we're going to see that. I mean, I feel like we're kind of already seeing that.
Yeah.
But I think in the next several years, this new generation that's coming along, I think there's going to be a lot of, I don't know, maybe early burnout. I mean, just the constant stress of the nervous system and just constant engagement. You know, like, I mean, I know, I mean, people in my family and their kids, it's just, they're always on their phone. And it's just like, man, I don't think that's good.
People
like
are noticing it. I think you're right. I mean, we even have data in the early 2000s. Psychologist Jean Twenge wrote a book called Generation Me. And I heard, and this was older stuff. I think she has some updated stuff about especially how social media affects teenage girls. And the depression rates just skyrocketing. But like the recent negative attention Facebook is getting for knowing, I guess one of the Facebook whistleblowers said that, you know, they internally knew the negative effect their platform was having on the mental health of people, and, you know, weren't honest about how they were exploiting those things. Allegedly, I guess I should say. That I don't think we're going to tolerate it. I don't think the younger generation is going to tolerate it. And I think it's one of those things what we were talking about earlier about really waking up. We need to wake up to this insight that you had, that I don't think our conscious mind, our species, is ready for this technology that in some ways is smarter than us. Like it's a race to the bottom of the brainstem, and it hijacks our limbic system. And it's too much for us to handle in a mature way. And maybe we need to have better tools to bring our conscious mind back online and say, like, wait a second. I always reference TikTok because I think it's like the most dangerous and entertaining one that's alive right now.
Totally.
Like, wait a second. I've been scrolling here for an hour. Why am I even doing this?
Right.
You know, don't I have something better to do?
Right.
Yeah, it's that awareness as one of the big antidotes. Awareness, connection, using the body as a tool.
Yeah. And what's imprinting on my brain after an hour of TikTok? It's like, okay, is that serving me or?
Yeah, I remember going to bed one night. I'm totally out of the closet as an occasional TikTok user, okay? Everybody forgive me. But I remember going to bed one night and I had some random TikTok like trend just playing on repeat in my mind. I'm like, that's what I'm going to bring into the dream world.
Yeah.
Totally.
Is some weird random TikTok trend, which it wasn't necessarily noxious. But imagine the people for whom the algorithm has figured out, oh, this person really likes this type of negative news, or they really like this kind of message, and it puts them in this little echo chamber of paranoia and anger and tribalism,
pro-eating disorder content.
Yeah. And it locks them into that, and then that's what's being imprinted on their mind, and it's shaping their consciousness, it's shaping who they are.
Yeah.
Yep. I think the fallout is going to be bigger than what people like. I don't think we can fully comprehend the fallout of social media technology on our culture just yet. I think we're starting to see it, but I don't know. It just feels like there's going to be a big mental crash with this next generation that's coming up.
Yeah, I think we see it already in the mental health crisis, the workplace crisis. Like, I know it's multifactorial, right? And the workplace is its own source of stress and distress. But I think thankfully the new generation, like having kids who are, well, 2 12-year-olds, a teenage daughter, like it's really, I guess it gives me hope to hear them talk about it. Like I remember my daughter saying, I've noticed that, when I'm on Instagram too much, I feel worse, or they just notice it, even though they can get sucked in as much or worse than we can. Like it's, you need that awareness or that questioning of why is this thing in my life at each step of the way, and we can certainly help the new generation with that. But I'm learning a lot from them too as they turn more towards a conscious relationship with the planet and just being more open to these new modalities and ways of taking care of ourselves.
That's great. You're teaching them well.
Yeah,
Parenting has a lot to do with it.
Parenting pro tip, everybody, like have periods of time throughout the week where your children are not on screens at all. I mean, maybe this goes without saying, but and maybe you folks just need a reminder. I know that I do every once in a while with my 3 boys, but even if they protest, sometimes we have to do things for our kids that upset them for their own good, and making them turn off the Xbox and making them put the iPad down and actually look outside or go outside and put their feet in the grass is so important.
Yep. Yeah, the guy that does our body work, Ryan, I was getting some work done with him yesterday, and he was telling me, he's like, yeah, my 2 boys, like they're starting to become aware. He's like, they're starting to understand that they're just different people when they're not so engaged with technology. Because like you were saying, the Xbox and social media, you get in that echo chamber of negativity. Or he was talking about there's a lot of disrespectful kids, on Xbox. Just
trash talking.
And
well, and it goes worse than that. It's like, really toxic, really abusive and bullying and racist and sexist. And I think it's pretty negative.
Yeah, so he took their Xbox from him last week, and I mean they weren't happy about it, but he's like, look, you're a different person just a week later. Look how happy you are. Look how much more you're spending outside. So just trying to bring that awareness to them.
We were talking about the body. I've talked to body workers, physical therapists who say they're seeing tight hamstrings, they're seeing back pain, they're seeing forward shoulders, they're seeing headaches, in kids way earlier than they would ever notice before, just because of all the sitting and all the, on the phones or the video game controller. They're seeing orthopedic problems in children who should be able to squat to the ground, who should be able to touch their toes by default.
Yeah, texting neck is a real thing.
Yeah, we call it nerd neck in our house.
Yeah, coming from the yoga world, I really cringe when I see the impact. Like I know when you sit in a car seat, it has you hunched over a little bit, but that's for crash protection, like just making this more hollow body kind of feel. But when you're that way through the day, or when you look at the zombie apocalypse out there and at every stoplight, everyone's down at their phones, or like families walking their kids with a stroller swiping through their phones and everyone hunched over. It's taking its toll on like weakening certain muscles, tightening up hamstrings, hips, but also like the psoas starts to contract. They call it the seat of the soul. This muscle that like even in like yoga mythology is where your courage comes from. You know, there's like Hindu mythology of Hanuman, the monkey god, who's leaping across the ocean to save his loyal friend guru with this plant medicine for saving him. But he didn't know he could do it until he took the leap. But they say it was because he had this open psoas, and you don't get that by hunching over on texting or video games all day.
And once you see it everywhere. It's like when your friend gets a fancy Tesla, and all of a sudden everyone has Teslas because you start that spotlight effect. And I've just been noticing, like, you look at everyone profile and they've got rounded shoulders, forward head, posterior pelvic tilt, and sway back, and it's like
mortality rates go up from that.
Right.
Yeah, it's a real deal. But I think even worse is that lack of presence that those bring as you're walking around the world, swiping and looking at things that aren't real, or talking to someone who's not even here, and you're not fully present for how your life's unfolding. How can you experience life fully?
It's absolutely true. It's having a massive impact on the nervous system. Playing video games, being in social media, seeing the things that stimulate emotions that aren't typically stimulated in the natural world. And people's attention span is completely changed. You can't have long drawn out conversations because content is meant to just come and go at breakneck speed.
Right.
People don't read books as much anymore.
I've noticed that myself. Like when I sit down with an actual paper book, my patience for it is shorter than it used to be.
Yeah. Oh, same. I have to take my phone and put it elsewhere to get through a book, and it worries me. Like, you can get that back through practice, but I do worry about the toll it's taking on us, the distracted world we live in.
I think the good news is, it's like muscle fatigue. Like you can train that muscle again to become focused. You can actually use reading to strengthen that muscle again, to practice, to become aware of, I'm reading and I'm getting lost after a page, and push into that, become aware, get into 2 pages, get into 3 pages, and just start flexing that muscle again. Stop letting it become atrophied. Put your phone somewhere else. Become aware that your phone is making that happen, and change habits. Maybe get a ketamine treatment. Start reading books more.
Get some CBD.
Thank heavens for neuroplasticity. Huh?
Right?
We're adaptation machines. Human beings can adjust with the right stimulus.
Yeah. I think something else that's great is you both have mentioned, like, you are creating experiences and connection outside of the digital world for your families, and that's huge. Because they know that they feel bad. Why? Because they have opportunities for them to feel good, and you're showing that, and that's kind of what we're doing at work. Is we're showing people you can feel good, and we're giving them the opportunity to experience that, and again, kind of build that muscle within themselves.
Excellent point. And to tie it back to psychedelics, I think that's one of the things that psychedelics does well is it shows you something, shows you how you can feel. It shows you a different perspective. It gives you an experience. Reid has talked about it as like, what do you call it, Reid? An embodied knowing. Like something where I could explain to you why your limiting beliefs are causing dysfunction in your life. And you might even understand cognitively, like, that kind of makes sense. And you might not change a thing. But if you have an experience of those limiting beliefs and you feel it in your bones and in your chakras and in your soul, you're much more likely to make changes, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, Chase, you were saying earlier how the mind can get in the way, right? I think we were talking about ayahuasca or something, but it's so true. But if you go through the body, I think that's a huge hack, a way around the labyrinths of the mind, the mental gymnastics that we're so good at, that you can access by this heart-centered, embodied approach.
Yeah.
So you mentioned ayahuasca or Peru. Tell us a little about your experience down there.
Yeah, so I did a month of isolation, 16 ceremonies.
Wow.
Down at Niue Rao down in Iquitos, Peru. It was my second time there. We just back up real quick. All of the founders, we all did a founders trip a year before that. So me, Tal, and Nate Sarin went and did 2 weeks down there, which was very profound and healing, and just created a new bond between us four. Is really cool, really special.
Board meeting I've heard of.
It was tough.
It's tough.
A lot came up, a lot came out, but a lot of healing happened those 2 weeks. But yeah, my month down there was really intense. I went down there to heal my nervous system because my nervous system was shot. The stress of COVID, running a business, is your business going to make it? Businesses around you are closing down. Some of your customer base, they're having to close their stores. So, the stress of COVID, and then the stress of the documentary and the things that I had to deal with there. So I could feel my nervous system almost like shutting down. And I was developing some weird neurological issues with my brain, different frequencies I was starting to hear, and just I couldn't focus, just full nervous system collapse. So I went down to Peru, and I would say it healed, like it healed my nervous system. Learned a lot of breaking down barriers, boundaries, self-love, accepting love. Felt like I was going to die one ceremony. And just every ceremony is just so different. I mean, the medicine is so intelligent. It knows exactly what you need, and it's going to give it to you that night. And one thing I love about ayahuasca and really appreciate about it is just how ruthless it is when it's going after something. Like, it's going after something. I had some family trauma. My grandma, my aunt actually murdered my grandma.
Oh no.
So I created, I had this stuck energy from that shock trauma within my family DNA. I had that trauma get stuck in my body. And so ayahuasca found that, and some of the neurological issues I was having was actually because of that stored energy and that trauma. So it took about a week and a half to like clean that out. But during ceremony, ayahuasca would just attack it. And it was painful, and the visuals I was seeing and what my body was experiencing, just very challenging and tough. But as we were saying earlier, just kind of remove your mind out of the equation and let nature do what it needs to do to heal you. And I experienced just vastly profound healing. It was definitely life-changing.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And extremely difficult work, it sounds like you were saying, the only way out is through. But I think it's so neat and profound how you were able to do that, unplug from the busy CEO role and take the time you needed to heal in an environment outside of all that stress that was bombarding you.
Yep. Yeah, it was weird. At first, I got down there, was setting up my tombo, the little hut in the middle of the jungle that I was staying in, and the first 30 minutes, it was just the energy shift was so weird because Western culture, running a business, high pace, lots of energy, lots of stimulation, lots of input to nothing. And even just the first day, just nauseating. I cried so much, like just so much crying.
Yeah.
Like it was strange. It was strange. And then integrating back was really hard. I had a complete meltdown for like 4 months. It was tough, but I was surrounded, that's one thing about our culture and our business is you're surrounded by the best people who will, hold you up. And Tayln and Nate were really able to like prop me up until I got through and just integrated. And now it's really cool because now I feel like a lot of my experience from that month, like is what I was experiencing and seeing, I'm actually now starting to fully integrate just over the last month. Like big shifts and changes in my life, business-wise, personal life, are all starting to shift towards what I experienced down there. So it's fun because I'm just the timing of everything is it's just fun to be aware of. Oh, it's all starting to integrate now. That's why there's so much change happening within my life because of what I experienced in Peru. It's really cool. It's really special.
I remember going to lunch with you a little while after you came back, and I think I said something like, wow, you are exuding mindfulness in this moment. It was like palpable. And then not too long ago, my brother, who you've met, said, wow, that guy is so zen. Like just this feeling of calm. So yeah, it's pretty neat to hear the whole story.
It sounds like a zen that was hard won. Like I really appreciate you being willing to share all those nitty gritty details of like how long this healing process took. Being down there for a month, and I've heard other people who come back from retreats like that, and they come back to Western society, and it's just like they're staring at a floodlight. It's overwhelming. It's not they don't come back enlightened gurus who take everything in stride. It's only a beginning or a part of their healing journey. And if I understood you right, Chase, it sounds like after you came back, it took a while. It's still you're still on the path, right?
Oh yeah.
For you to integrate and continue to heal.
Yes. Yep. I think when I first got back, I was so open, and then I just kind of fell back into the Western world culture energy, and it was too overwhelming for my body. I mean, I was thinking about leaving and going back because I couldn't take it. But then started to settle in and just understand, kind of like Ram Dass talks about, like your karma and this role that you're playing, and I felt like I really understood my role, which helped me integrate back into the Western culture. But yeah, the healing is just starting, and the work really is just starting, and I'll probably be integrating a year, 2 years. Tayln still talks about how she's still integrating from 2 years ago, just the 2-week journey.
Oh yeah. Integration is kind of the tricky part of all of this, right? Is we can do these massive psychedelic experiences and have profound insight and come back and do nothing with it. We can just keep on to our old patterns, our old habits, or we can do the work. And sometimes it's even tougher work than the ceremony itself. Because you have to be willing to look at the pattern and interrupt it, and choose to change it, choose to step into it fully. And that part can be hard.
That is the hard work, because you don't have the psychedelic fireworks, even though there are psychedelic experiences that are extremely terrifying, difficult, right? The integration is the harder part to continually do, I think, and where the rubber meets the road. And a process I think is never done. Like that's almost the journey we're on is continually integrating and piecing ourselves back together.
Well, and you got to find a way to dissolve ego without the help of the medicine, right? And that's one reason I've tried to dive into meditation. I feel like mindfulness meditation or transcendental meditation is the best tool I've found, one of several, but probably the best tool I've found to integrate, because it's the closest I can get to psychedelic consciousness, really aware, really present consciousness.
Yeah, totally agree. Meditation's been huge for me.
Well, it's the daily practice of coming back to yourself.
Yeah.
Like we talked about, we live in a world where everything is trying to pull us far away from that. And with meditation, you really are pulling yourself back to you. And, sitting and learning, like, okay, how did I show up today? I think Joe Dispenza has some really great meditations for that. Where did I fall out of grace?
Yeah.
And, okay, here's that pattern showing up again, because we can become cognizant of the things in our lives, but it's great to know those things, but like the moments they happen, the experiences of them happening, and like being cognizant then and transmuting in the moments rather than just like knowing about them.
Are there any other practices that you guys implement that you feel like are really helped with integration besides meditation?
Cold water therapy. It's been big for me lately. I try to jump in the river 2 to 3 times a week.
Wow.
So that...
what do you feel like it does for you?
Gets me into the body.
Yeah.
Stops the mind chatter. Because it's like, man, when you hit that water, it's like nothing else in the world matters besides trying to stay in, but then also trying to just breathe. And so that's been a really good practice for me. We've been taking the company out and doing it, and it's been fun to watch people who you're like, I don't know if they're gonna do it, and they do it, and they have this profound experience, and they get out after, and it's fun to just watch others kind of push the boundaries of what they think they're capable of.
And how many of you in the audience work at a company that will take you to jump in a cold river? Like, that's pretty awesome.
How cool is that?
That's pretty
we
awesome.
get that
And
perspective too.
I can picture it too, because I go to the river across from your office sometimes for a plunge. You need to come try it. We'll sync up with them sometime.
Definitely.
But that's amazing.
I think for me, one of the tools that I've used is I got a life coach. And the reason that's important for me is this person has done a lot of their own inner work, and they can be a very strong mirror for me to show me when I am showing up in a pattern that I might not be cognizant of. Sometimes we're kind of like unaware of our own stuff, right? And it's hard to see. So having people around me that can be a strong mirror to reflect back how I'm behaving or how I'm showing up. And that keeps the work going for me, because I can't just pretend I'm like good to go, you know, like you get these reflections of like, oh, you're showing up like this. And I think that's been a really huge tool. One that I didn't really know was a thing until the last couple of months. And it's been pivotal. Community, being around people, it's pivotal because we, especially in a room like this where you guys are doing work on yourselves, and you can kind of share those things that have brought you closer to yourself, and that keep me thinking, that keep me in check. That's been probably one of the most profound tools for me as of late.
The community.
Yeah.
Or the other one.
Having mirrors and being a mirror for other people.
Yeah, that's been good. She's been, since she got her life coach, she's actually been helping me integrate a lot. And just, hey, are you aware of this? And I think that creating that space of non-judgmental, giving feedback, I think that is just so critical for really anybody in their growth.
Well, the blind spots, psychedelics, they are going to show you your blind spots, sometimes very harshly. But we get to practice that. We get to practice showing people their blind spots in a very loving way. And it's fun. It's cool to give people that feedback and create those containers of growth and love, and that pushes the whole forward. You know, we talk about changing the world. We want to change other people. That's not how it works. We get to start with ourselves. We get to change ourselves. We get to experience what we're experiencing, integrate it, and then show other people what's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that you heal within, and then in your tribe, your small groups, and then in your broader community. Then you project that out to the world. That's how we save ourselves from getting gobbled up and recycled by the planet, because we're so unconscious.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably wrap up. Not because I want to, but because our cameras are going to run out of space.
Let's do it.
Where should folks go to learn more about you guys and Hemplucid?
Our website, hemplucid.com, all social media platforms, Hemplucid. I'm not really active on social media. She's probably more active on social media.
I know, for all the shit we just talked about social media, follow us on Instagram
Yeah.
at Dr. Steve Thayer,
We're not immune to being human.
at Interspace Doctor, Psychedelic Therapy Frontiers.
Souls and
Hemplucid.
rolls, right?
Yeah.
Like Ram Dass says.
Right.
Yeah.
Assume the roles. But it's been great. Appreciate you guys. Thank you for everything. I mean, it's pretty cool, what we've been able to do with our company, utilizing the ketamine treatments and, you guys facilitating those. Like, it's awesome because on the backside, like, we get to see the transformation, like, really take hold, and people really reorient their lives to more of, like, the positive. It's probably the coolest thing that we do with our company is to watch this shift in people after treatments.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for what you do. Cedar, Novamind, it's incredible work. You guys are having a tremendous impact on people. So thank you.
Likewise,
Yeah.
it's such a neat partnership, and it is a powerful thing to watch the transformation. So thank you too as well.
Yeah, it's great to have people just come into my office and just cry in
Oh,
my
yeah.
arms, like,
Yeah.
you won't believe what happened, and Dr. Reid talked to me, and this thing that happened, and I healed from this experience, and just to be able to have that intimate connection with a person, like, for me, it's what it's all about, the rekindling of the human spirit, and you guys are having a big part in that.
That and the setup you guys have is amazing. It's professional, it's
Mhm.
clean, it's safe. You're doing it right, and it's making big waves.
Mm-hmm.
So we're truly appreciative of the space and the bravery, for sure, showing up in a world that, again, doesn't like to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And you guys are podcasting about it and sharing the good word, if you will.
Well, thank
So
you.
thank
It
you.
Thanks,
means
guys.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
Of course. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, dear listener, for listening. It means a lot to me. Psychedelic Therapy Frontiers is brought to you by Novamind, a mental health company that specializes in psychedelic medicine and research. You can learn more about Novamind's mission to increase access to legal, safe, and evidence-based psychedelic medicine at novamind.ca. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're using to listen or watch. Also, if you're feeling generous today, please leave us a glowing review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. If you'd like to reach out to us with questions, suggestions, scathing criticisms, etc., please email us at psychfrontiers@novamind.ca. Thanks again.